He called her Barren and threw her into the rain with nothing but heartbreak. 9 years later, she returns, successful, radiant, and with triplets who bear his eyes. Now, as the man who once crushed her kneels for mercy, Evelyn must choose between revenge and the peace she's finally earned. Hey family, welcome to Real Life Heart Stories. Please subscribe and give this video a like. It truly means the world to us. Don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you so much for the support. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. Morning sunlight streamed through the large glass windows of Richard Cole's mansion, but the warmth never reached the dining table. The air was cold, heavy, and silent except for the clink of silver spoons. Evelyn moved carefully, placing a cup of steaming coffee in front of her husband. "Good morning," she said softly, hoping for a smile. Richard didn't look up. His eyes stayed fixed on his tablet. "You're late." Evelyn blinked, surprised. "It's just 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock means you're already late," he snapped. "And you forgot to add sugar again." "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I'll fix it." He cut her off sharply. "You can't even make coffee properly, Evelyn. You can't give me a child, you don't work, and now you can't even serve breakfast right. What exactly do you contribute to this house?" His voice echoed through the dining hall like thunder. The maids froze where they stood. Evelyn's hands trembled. "Richard, please don't talk like that. We can try again." The doctor said. "Enough." Richard slammed his tablet down. "Hope doesn't build legacies. My friends have sons to carry their names. What do I have? A barren wife who drains my time and money." Tears welled in her eyes. "You knew I wasn't rich when you married me. You said my love was enough." Richard sneered. "Love doesn't pay bills, Evelyn. Love doesn't build empires." He stood, brushing past her like she was invisible. "I have a meeting. Don't wait up." Evelyn watched him walk away, the smell of his cologne lingering like a painful memory. When the front door slammed, she sank into a chair and covered her face with her hands. The quiet of the house pressed against her chest until she could hardly breathe. That night he didn't come home. The driver came instead, holding an envelope. "Madam," the driver said uneasily, "Olga asked me to give you this." Her heart pounded. Inside were divorce papers. By the time Richard returned the next morning, his mind was made up. "Sign them," he ordered. "I need freedom." "Freedom?" Evelyn's voice broke. "Freedom from your wife? From a mistake," he said coldly. "I want a woman who can give me a family and who doesn't come to the table empty-handed." She fell to her knees, clutching his leg. "Richard, please, don't do this. You promised me forever." "Forever ended when you failed," he said, jerking his leg away. He threw her suitcase into the rain-soaked driveway, clothes spilling out like pieces of her heart. "Get out." "Richard!" she cried, her voice drowned by thunder. "Where will I go?" "Anywhere but here," he said, slamming the door behind her. Evelyn stood in the rain, drenched, shivering, clutching her torn suitcase. Lightning flashed across the sky as she whispered through tears, "God, please don't let this be the end." And barefoot, heartbroken, and alone, she turned and began to walk into the night, not knowing that the road ahead would one day lead to her greatest victory. Rain fell endlessly that night, soaking Evelyn to the bone. The streetlights flickered, and her heels clicked weakly against the wet pavement. She had no umbrella, no plan, no home. Each step felt heavier than the last, her suitcase dragging behind her through puddles. When her strength failed, she took shelter under a bridge, curling up beside her soaked clothes. Cars roared by above, sending down splashes of dirty rainwater. Her stomach growled. She clutched her knees and whispered, "God, please, don't let me die here." At dawn, she rose and began walking again. Her legs ached, but she refused to stop. She finally reached Ada's house, her closest friend from before the marriage. Evelyn knocked softly, her fingers trembling. Ada opened the door, surprise flashing across her face. "Evelyn?" My God, what happened to you? Evelyn forced a smile. I need a place to stay for a few days. Ada hesitated. Evelyn, my husband doesn't like drama. You know how Lagos gossip spreads. If people find out you're here, I just need a few nights, Evelyn whispered. Ada's eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. I can't. I'm sorry. The door closed gently, but it felt like it slammed on her heart. Evelyn tried another friend, Clara, but her answer was no different. You should have saved money, Clara said bluntly. Depending on a man was your mistake. Evelyn nodded slowly, tears mixing with rain. You're right. I made mistakes. But even as she walked away, she whispered, At least I loved truly. By evening, she reached the outskirts of the city. The roads narrowed, shops faded, and hunger twisted inside her. She leaned against the gate of a small white church with a rusted sign. Redeemer's Place. All are welcome. All are welcome, she whispered weakly. Let that be true. Her vision blurred. The world tilted. Then darkness swallowed her. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on a small bed covered with clean sheets. The air smelled of soap and palm oil. A gentle voice said, You're safe. Don't move too quickly. Evelyn turned her head. A middle-aged man with kind eyes sat by her side, holding a Bible. I'm Pastor Daniel, he said softly. You fainted outside our gate. Embarrassed, she tried to sit. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to trouble anyone. He smiled kindly. You didn't trouble anyone. You're welcome here. Tears filled her eyes. I have nowhere to go. Then this will be home for now, Daniel said. We'll find you something to do in the kitchen or cleaning. You'll be safe. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. Because I once needed help too, he replied. And someone showed me mercy. He placed a bowl of warm porridge in her hands. Eat. Tomorrow will be better. Evelyn stared at the simple meal, her tears falling into it. For the first time in months, someone saw her as human, not as a failure. And as she ate slowly, a small light returned to her eyes. She didn't know it yet, but she had just stepped onto the road that would lead her to her destiny. Days passed slowly at Redeemer's Place. Evelyn swept the church compound every morning, helped in the kitchen, and folded him books at night. The work was simple, but it gave her peace. She didn't have to prove her worth or pretend to be strong. No one mocked her for being childless. For the first time in years, silence didn't hurt. Pastor Daniel checked on her often. How are you feeling today? He'd ask. Better, she'd say, even on the hard days. He gave her small jobs, washing dishes, helping to serve food at the women's fellowship meetings, and paid her with smiles and hot meals. Evelyn was thankful. Each night before bed, she whispered, Thank you, God. Maybe I wasn't forgotten after all. But one morning, as she scrubbed a pot, her stomach twisted. She dropped the sponge and ran outside, vomiting until her body shook. Sister Amaka, one of the church women, rushed over. Auntie Evelyn, you're sick. I'm fine, she said weakly. But the same thing happened the next day, and the next. Pastor Daniel frowned when he saw her pale face. You need to see a doctor. At first she refused. She didn't want to waste anyone's money, but Daniel insisted. Your health is part of your healing, he said. Go. At the small clinic nearby, a nurse took her blood sample and asked a few questions. After a while, the doctor, a gentle woman with bright eyes, returned with a paper in her hand. Mrs. Cole, sorry, Miss Evelyn, the doctor said carefully. Congratulations. You're pregnant. Evelyn froze. Pregnant? Her voice was barely a whisper. That's not possible. I was told I couldn't conceive. The doctor smiled. Who told you that? My husband's doctors. They said I was barren. Well, the doctor said softly, they were wrong. The room blurred. Evelyn sat down slowly, her heart pounding. Pregnant? After all the insults, the shame, the nights she cried herself to sleep because she believed she was broken, felt unreal. Tears filled her eyes. I don't understand how? The doctor smiled again. Sometimes the body surprises us. This is good news, ma'am. Very good news. When Evelyn walked out of the clinic, the sun felt different. She held her stomach with both hands and whispered, "After everything, you still remembered me." But that night, lying in her small room, the truth came rushing back. The last time she had been with Richard was the night she returned to beg for another chance. He had been drinking, angry, cruel, and before pushing her out again, he had forced himself on her. Now she carried his child, his seed, his legacy, the same man who had called her useless. Evelyn pressed a hand to her chest. "No," she whispered. "He will never know. He threw me away. I will not let him throw away this child too." The next morning, she told Pastor Daniel. His face broke into a smile of pure joy. "Then heaven has answered," he said softly. "What man called barren, God has called fruitful." Evelyn wept into her hands. This time, her tears were not from pain, they were from hope. Evelyn's life changed quietly. Her mornings were slower now, her steps more careful. She helped less around the church, and Pastor Daniel made sure she rested. The women's fellowship took turns bringing her meals. For the first time, people cared for her without expecting anything in return. As the months passed, she began to smile again. She sang softly as she cooked, her hands often resting on her stomach. "You're my miracle," she whispered. "You'll never feel unwanted like I did." At 5 months, she went for her scan. The nurse squinted at the screen, then smiled. "Madam, I see something special here." Evelyn tensed. "What is it?" "There are 2 babies," the nurse said, laughing. "Twins." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. "2? God, you doubled my blessing." But then the nurse adjusted the probe and gasped. "Wait, oh, madam, there are 3. 3. Evelyn cried, half laughing, half weeping. "Triplets." "Yes, ma'am. You're carrying 3 healthy babies." She covered her face, overwhelmed. "The woman called Barren will soon be the mother of 3. That night she couldn't sleep. She knelt by her bed, whispering, "Lord, I will never doubt you again. I will raise them with love, and I will never let them grow in hate." 9 months later, in a small coastal clinic far from the noise of the city, Evelyn went into labor. The pain was fierce, but her will was stronger. Hours passed. The nurses encouraged her. Pastor Daniel prayed outside, and she held on. Then came the first cry, loud and sharp. A second cry followed, softer but strong. And then a third cry, bright and sweet, echoing through the small ward. 3 healthy babies, the nurse shouted joyfully. 2 boys and 1 girl. Evelyn sobbed, exhausted but smiling. The nurse placed the newborns in her arms one by one. Tiny, warm, perfect. She looked at the first. "You'll be called Ethan Strength." She looked at the second. "You'll be Evan Grace." And the little girl who had cried the loudest, she kissed gently. "You'll be Elise Joy." She leaned back against the pillow, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. "Thank you, God," she whispered. "You didn't forget me." After leaving the clinic, Pastor Daniel helped her settle in a small rented room near the coast. With his support, she started a food stall, Eve's Haven. Her food was delicious and her hands steady. She worked from sunrise till dusk, carrying 1 child on her back while the other 2 slept nearby. People loved her cooking, but they admired her resilience even more. Soon, Eve's Haven became known all over town. She saved every naira she could, dreaming of a better life for her children. Every night, after feeding the triplets and tucking them in, she prayed, "Lord, I may be alone, but I am never empty again." Her tears were gone. Her fear was gone. And in their place grew quiet strength, the strength of a woman who had lost everything, yet found the courage to begin again. 9 years passed like a whisper. The woman who once begged in the rain had become a story people told with pride. Evelyn Cole was now the CEO of Eve's Haven Group, one of Lagos' fastest-growing luxury catering companies. Her food graced high-end weddings, government events, and business conferences. Her triplets Ethan, Evan, and Elise were the light of her world. Smart, polite, and full of laughter, they reminded her daily of how far she'd come. Every morning, Evelyn stood before the mirror in her modest but elegant office suit. Gone was the trembling woman who cried for validation. What stared back now was a woman rebuilt by fire and grace. Still, beneath her calm success, there was one truth she never spoke aloud. She had never told Richard about the children. She didn't hate him anymore. She simply didn't care to look back. Until fate came knocking disguised as business. One Monday morning, her assistant, Faye, burst into her office with a wide grin. "Madam, big client alert. You'll want to see this one." Evelyn took the file and flipped through the pages casually, until her eyes froze on the client's name. Client, Richard Cole and Vanessa Reed. Event, wedding gala. Venue, the Grand Bellerose Hall. Her hands stilled. The past had finally found her address. "Madam," Faye asked, nervous, "should I turn it down? I can reject it immediately." Evelyn closed the file slowly. Her voice was calm, but her heartbeat thundered. "No, accept it." Faye hesitated. "You're sure?" "Yes," Evelyn said, a faint smile curving her lips. Some stories write their own endings. Over the next few weeks, she poured herself into the project. She oversaw every menu detail, the wine pairings, desserts, even the floral arrangements. Her staff marveled at her precision, not knowing that every decision carried an unspoken purpose. When the triplets noticed their mother's sleepless nights, Elise asked one evening, "Mom, why are you working so hard for this wedding?" Evelyn smiled gently. "Because sometimes God asks us to finish what we started. But this time with our heads high." She didn't tell them whose wedding it was. Not yet. The night before the event, she stood by her window, watching the Lagos skyline sparkle. She thought of how far she had come, from tears in the rain to a name that commanded respect. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "the past will see who I've become." She opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed brown envelope, a set of DNA test results she had kept safe for years, proving the truth of her children's paternity. She didn't know if she would need it, but something in her heart told her the time had come. "God," she whispered, eyes glistening, "give me the strength to face what broke me and walk away victorious." Then she turned off the light, kissed her children goodnight, and prepared for the day that would shake her ex-husband's world. The Grand Bellerose Hall glittered like a palace. Chandeliers hung like crystal tears, violins filled the air, and guests in expensive attire whispered about the event of the year. Billionaire Richard Cole's wedding to his beautiful young fiancée, Vanessa Reed. Every detail was flawless, from the gold-trimmed napkins to the floral centerpieces. Eve's Haven Group had outdone itself. And yet, not one person in the room knew that the elegant planner behind it all was the man's ex-wife. Behind the stage, Evelyn stood in a cream suit, her head high, her heart steady. She adjusted her bracelet, the one her late mother had given her, and exhaled slowly. Her children, waiting by the car outside with a trusted staff member, had no idea they were part of history in the making. The music softened. The priest opened his Bible. "We are gathered here today to join this man and this woman." Then the heavy doors creaked open. A hush swept through the hall. Every camera turned. Every whisper died. There she was, Evelyn Cole. She walked in slowly, gracefully, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Her white tailored suit shimmered softly under the lights. The room seemed to hold its breath. Vanessa frowned. "Who's that?" she whispered to Richard. Richard turned and froze. His face went pale, the smile dying on his lips. "Evelyn," he breathed. She stopped halfway down the aisle and smiled faintly. "Good afternoon, Richard. Don't stop on my account. I only came to return something that belongs to you." The crowd murmured. Phones rose discreetly. The photographers forgot their job. Evelyn turned toward the door and gestured. 3 small children entered, 2 boys in identical black suits and a little girl in a white dress. Their eyes shone bright and familiar, the same storm-gray eyes as Richard's. Gasps echoed through the hall. Vanessa's voice trembled. "Who are those children?" Evelyn looked straight at Richard. "Your children." The room erupted. Guests whispered. Reporters scrambled to take photos, and even the priest lowered his Bible in shock. "Evelyn, this is madness," Richard hissed, trying to keep his composure. "You can't just—" "Madness?" She raised an eyebrow. "You called me Barren, remember? You threw me into the street like trash. But here I stand, and here are your sons and daughter." Vanessa's face turned white. "Is this true, Richard?" he stammered. It's not possible." But before he could finish, the projector behind them flickered to life. The technician, confused by the wrong file name, had clicked open a document Evelyn's team had prepared for the wedding slideshow, and instead, the DNA test result appeared, bold and clear. "Paternity test. Richard Cole, 99.9% match." Gasps became chaos. Cameras flashed. Voices rose. Vanessa threw her bouquet to the floor. "You liar!" she screamed, turning to Richard. "You told me she was gone." Evelyn took her children's hands and smiled calmly. "Don't worry, Vanessa. She was gone. But she's back stronger than ever." Then she turned and walked out, her children beside her, their small hands gripping hers tightly. The crowd parted silently as she passed, the air thick with awe and disbelief. Behind her, Richard stood frozen, surrounded by flashing lights, broken pride, and a silence louder than any insult. For the first time, he looked truly small. And as Evelyn stepped into the evening light, she whispered to herself, "That's enough." The next morning, Lagos was buzzing. Every news outlet carried the same headline: "Billionaire's wedding interrupted by ex-wife and triplets, DNA confirms paternity." At Eve's Haven headquarters, Evelyn sat quietly in her office, sipping tea while her staff whispered in disbelief. But she wasn't shaken. She had faced storms far worse than gossip. Her phone buzzed again, the same number that had called all morning. She ignored it twice, but on the third ring she sighed and answered. "Evelyn." Richard's voice came through, hoarse and trembling. "Please? Can we meet?" She was silent for a long time. Then, calmly, she said, "1 hour. My office." When he arrived, the guards hesitated before letting him in. The confident man who once threw her into the rain now looked pale and worn. His suit was wrinkled, his tie gone. His eyes, once proud and cold, were full of shame. He stood in front of her desk, struggling to find words. "Evelyn, She raised a hand. "Sit." He obeyed quietly, the air heavy with the sound of his guilt. "I didn't come here to listen to excuses," she began softly. "Say what you came to say." He exhaled shakily. "I was wrong, completely wrong. I hurt you in ways no woman deserves. I thought success made me powerful, but it made me cruel. I lost everything that ever mattered." Evelyn folded her hands on the desk. "You didn't lose me, Richard. You threw me away." He looked down, his jaw tightening as tears filled his eyes. "When I saw them, Ethan, Evan, and Elise, I felt something break inside me. I never knew emptiness until that moment." She studied him quietly. "Now you understand what I lived with for years, being made to feel empty while carrying everything alone." "I can't change the past," he whispered. "But please, let me be part of their lives. Let me try to make things right." Evelyn leaned back in her chair. "You can't buy your way back in. You can't charm your way back either. If you want to be in their lives, it won't be on your terms." "Then tell me what to do," he said quickly. "Anything. Start by showing up," she said firmly. "No cameras, no drama, just presence. You will see them every Saturday for an hour supervised, until I know you can be trusted." He nodded, tears sliding down his face. "I'll do whatever it takes." Evelyn's expression softened slightly. "Richard, I forgave you a long time ago, not for your sake but for mine. Forgiveness gave me peace." He looked up, hopeful. "Then maybe there's still a chance for us?" She smiled sadly. "No, Richard. You taught me something. Some doors, once closed, must remain closed." She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. He rose too, his shoulders heavy. As he reached the door, he turned. "Evelyn, you've become incredible." She met his eyes with quiet strength. "I always was. You just never saw it." When the door closed behind him, Evelyn exhaled deeply. There was no anger left. No pain, only peace. She had faced her past and won. A month after the scandal, the world had moved on, but Evelyn hadn't stopped moving forward. She had new plans. Bigger, bolder ones. At a small press conference in Surrey, she stood behind a simple podium, wearing an elegant pastel dress. Cameras flashed, microphones lined the stage, and journalists leaned in. Behind her was a new banner that read, Second Chances Foundation, founded by Evelyn Cole. She began calmly. Good afternoon, everyone. Some of you know my story. Some of you only know the headlines. But today isn't about the past. It's about what pain taught me. The hall was silent. There was a time I was called Barren. Useless. A failure. But God doesn't waste pain. What man threw away, he rebuilt. Today, I stand not as a victim, but as proof that broken things can become beautiful again. Soft murmurs filled the air. Evelyn continued, This foundation will support single mothers, women labeled barren, and those rejected for being not enough. We'll offer them training, business grants, and hope, because no woman should have to beg to be seen. The crowd erupted into applause. A reporter raised his hand. Mrs. Cole, if I may ask, have you forgiven your ex-husband? Evelyn smiled gently. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone else. It's freedom you give yourself. Yes, I forgave him, but forgiveness doesn't mean returning to what broke you. Another asked, What about your children? Will he be part of their lives? He's their father, she said simply. They deserve to know him, not his mistakes. I'm giving him a chance to be a better man for them. Applause again. But this time it was quieter, more emotional. When the event ended, she stepped off the stage and spotted 3 familiar little faces waiting by the side, Ethan, Evan, and Elise. They ran toward her, laughter bubbling as they hugged her tightly. Mom, you were amazing, Ethan said. You sounded like a superhero, Elise added proudly. Evelyn laughed, holding them close. You're my real superpower. As they left the hall, she noticed someone standing quietly by the door, Richard. No cameras, no entourage, just him. He didn't come closer, but when Elise saw him, she smiled and waved. He waved back, tears shining in his eyes. Evelyn's gaze softened for a moment. Then she turned to her children. Come on, darlings, let's go home. Outside, the evening breeze carried a quiet peace. The city lights shimmered like stars scattered across the ground. They walked toward their car, hand in hand. Mom, Evan asked, are we rich now? Evelyn smiled. We're rich in peace, and that's the best kind of wealth. The car pulled into the road, leaving behind the noise, the flashing cameras, and the ghosts of a painful past. As they drove off, Evelyn looked out the window and whispered, My revenge was never to hurt him, it was to become everything he thought I couldn't be. And that was the truth. Her success, her strength, her peace. That was the sweetest revenge. We've come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.